What's a fact you know that almost everyone is wrong about? Rubies are actually sapphires, and sapphires come in almost any color you can think of. To be specific, sapphire is a specific base chemical / crystal structure, corundum. Sorry TES players, the metallurgy in those games is entirely screwy. Rubies are the same chemical / crystal structure as all other sapphires. The red sapphires are named differently from all the other sapphires purely because of historical accident, not from them being different in any significant way. Macaroons are those chocolate coconut things, while macarons are the cookies. People always try to correct me, and it doesn't help that when you search macaroon it comes up with the cookie. I see posts in r/popular all the time that misidentify sea lions as seals. It's fairly easy to tell the difference if you see how they move on land. Sea lions can tuck their back flipper under them and walk on it, while seals are tubes and have to bounce / shuffle along on land. There is not just fight or flight response, but also a freeze response. The muscles tense and the body goes very still. This explains why some people are paralyzed with fear and freeze instead of running or fighting back. It is very helpful for camouflage and hiding from predators with poor eyesight. It does not work so well when standing in front of a speeding truck. It's the logic behind the term like a deer in headlights. People don't seem to realize humans do it too. Tic Tacs are not sugar-free. While listed as sugar-free, this is a marketing trick taking advantage of a loophole due to their small size. To be listed as sugar-free, a product must contain no more than 0.5 grams of sugar per serving. Tic Tacs are approximately 98% sugar, but the serving size is 1 mint, with an average size only 0.49 grams. Because the overall size is less than the minimum amount, they can say that they are sugar-free. The myth of Narcissus. Most people think of it as he has fallen in love with himself, missing the distinction and nuance that he falls in love with the image of himself. This is important. If you run into any narcissist, you will notice the image they have of themselves is quite different from who they actually are. Also, not everyone who is selfish is a narcissist. Diamonds are not the most valuable ore. $2,000 to $25,000 per carat. That crown goes to jadeite. $3 million per carat. Edit, where I got my info. What about netherite? If you're not consistent with disciplining your child, they will not understand the concept of consequences, and thus no matter how hard you try, they will continue to engage in the undesired behavior. You all would think that this is a basic thing for parents to understand, but nay. Little Braden / Caden / Drayden / Graydon / Hayden / Jaden / Peden / Ockaden is an angel, and it is no big deal that he pushed a kid off a bike and the kid who fell may have a concussion. As a teacher, I see far too many parents coddle their children. Sorry love, your son is pushing kids for literally no reason. We have tried every behavior management and discipline strategy we could think of. Yet when you pick your son up at the end of the day and you sign the incident reports, you tell him not to worry and give him candy and act like nothing happened. He's going to think what he did is okay and continue to do it. Parents, please believe your child's teachers when it comes to their behavior. We just want to have a future where the generation who is going to end up taking care of us isn't full of assholes. Beer won't skunk if you let it get warm after getting cold. It's all about light exposure. Edit. Thank you to everyone who was able to better refine the statement that I made. It should be noted that extreme and extended changes in temperature will in fact affect the flavor of a beer. Good one. My organic chemistry professor in undergrad worked on the beer side of food science. Every Halloween he would show the episode of a European documentary about beer skunking. If I remember correctly, a compound in the hops was light sensitive and would break down / produce a thiol compound when bombarded with sunlight, which the documentary kept humorously referring to as the cat piss compound. Our professor called it skunky thiol. I think he developed a chemical additive that would absorb excess light and keep the thiol from being produced, but if added to beer, made the end product could not be classified as beer by the strictest definitions. The other way to slow down the reaction was using colored glass bottles instead of clear glass to try to block certain harmful wavelengths. Props to the marketing team at Corona for the lime wedge/lime juice campaign to mask the high levels of cat piss compound. Not sure if it's for most people, but the people I've come across had this wrong almost always. Canberra is the capital city of Australia, Sydney is not. Your hair and nails don't actually keep growing after you die. Your body just loses moisture and fluids, making your body dehydrate and shrink up. This gives the illusion that your fingernails and hair appear longer. And it's what made people believe in vampires or witches when they'd look at people that had been dead for days and saw their hair and nails grow. Instead of Luke, I'm your father, Darth Vader actually says no, I'm your father in The Empire Strikes Back. Kirk also never said beam me up, Scotty. Most people say that trees are good against climate change. They think trees will receive all the CO2. But actually we have to thank phytoplankton for making 80% of our oxygen. And for receiving CO2. Trees also are super important in keeping regular rainfall. Think Dust Bowl. The Mayans didn't disappear or go extinct. They still live in Central America and speak at least 24 different Mayan languages. The last Mayan city didn't fall to Spanish conquest until 1697. Same for Aztecs. Nahuatl is still spoken in Mexico. Water isn't actually conductive. It's the impurities in the water that allows it to conduct electricity. Edit, for those that are commenting that it can conduct electricity, albeit not very well, I'm aware. But it conducts so very poorly that it is essentially negligible. So for simplicity's sake, it's easy enough to say it doesn't conduct electricity. My chemistry teacher told the class this. And had some backlash. So, he proved it. Marie Antoinette never said, let them eat cake. The first written account of this story is from 1767 and doesn't attribute the quote to her. She would have been 12 at the time and would go on to marry Louis XVI 3 years after this quote was initially published. The quote wasn't even about cake, it was about brioche. While serving on an airfield, I remember telling an aviation friend that there was a plane coming in about an hour from then. He said that was impossible because the tower is closed. I explained to him that flights come in all the time when the towers are closed. Even commercial jets are constantly landing without the tower being open. He absolutely blew up, said I didn't know what I was talking about, and that planes would crash all the time if that were the case. How could planes land without a tower? That just makes no sense. I even got my superior officer on the phone the next day to explain it, and he still wouldn't believe it. I had 3 other people under me explain it to him, and he still wouldn't believe it. I told him, dude, it's really simple to prove. The tower hours are posted. Check the last time a flight lands for the night, and I guarantee it will be after that time. He did, it was, and yet he still refused to believe me. The sad fact is, people would probably riot if they found this out, because they'd think it was horribly dangerous, but it's been standard operating procedure for decades now and no one has even noticed. It hasn't caused a single crash. Believe it or not, it's actually safer to come in after hours, because of the reduced traffic. This is not something that needs fixing, it's a very logical move. But I'll bet there are even people reading this that won't believe it. Unless you work in aviation, you probably don't know any of this. Singers, almost universally, have a consistent tendency to sing slightly flat, not sharp. It's due primarily to lack of proper breath support, and not because they have a tin ear for music. Porcupines can't throw their quills. But you can throw a porcupine. Dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical. You see the misconception all the time. Someone indulges in their favorite vice and says gotta get my dopamine rush. But dopamine isn't about pleasure, it's about craving. Our dopamine levels don't spike when we get something we want. They spike when something we want becomes available and go down once we actually get the pleasurable thing. Dopamine isn't the rush of driving fast, it's the green light that tells you to go edit. Obligatory thanks for the silver and RIP my inbox. And like some folks have pointed out, I'm oversimplifying for the sake of brevity. Dopamine has a lot of functions, different pathways and receptor sites, etc. Your flight isn't delayed because the tower says so. They blame it on us, air traffic control, because if the airlines admit the blame on themselves they may have to reimburse you. Edit, it's weather 90% of the time. Those lying bastards. This is really specific, but in most anatomy or biomechanics textbooks the ankle joint is classified as a second-class lever with the ball of the foot labeled as the fulcrum. This is incorrect as the system rotates about the ankle joint, not the ball of the foot. Therefore it is a first-class lever, not second. This right here is a hill I will die on. I often say, I'm not dying on that hill to express my apathy. I'm jealous you found your hill. Your very specific, very accurate hill. Long Island iced teas do not have iced tea in them or Long Island, ounces, 0.5 vodka / 0.5 rum, silver, /0.5 gin / 0.5 tequila / 0.5 triple secretary / 1 ounce sour mix / 1 ounce coke / 10. AskReddit / enjoy. Leaning your head back is actually worse for a nosebleed. That it's a good idea to make furniture out of old pallet wood. No, that stuff gets treated with all kinds of pesticides when shipped overseas, so you don't transfer any bugs or fungi. You don't want the gases emerging from it in your living room. I've even seen baby beds made from that shiff. The X in Christmas stands for the Greek letter chi, the first letter in the Greek word Christ. It is not crossing out Jesus. A monsoon isn't rain, it is a seasonal wind. Monsoon winds actually bring droughts at certain times of the year, and rain in other parts. It's a monsoon outside is not a correct thing to say when it's pouring. Diamonds can in fact be shattered with a hammer. There is a difference between how strong something is and how hard it is. MSG is a natural substance. If you say you're allergic to MSG, you're allergic to tomatoes and cabbage and all kinds of natural food. MSG is basically if people started calling salt sodium chloride to make it sound like a scary chemical, then started having allergic reactions to it. A heart attack and cardiac arrest are not the same thing. Some severe heart attacks can lead to cardiac arrest, however there are many that experience heart attacks unknowingly and carry on their merry way. If you don't have a will, your spouse doesn't necessarily get your stuff. But the state doesn't take it all either. You don't have to pay gift taxes if you make a gift of over $15K, you just have to file a gift tax return. Revocable trusts don't change the taxation of your estate. Guess what I do for a living lol edit, wow. This sure blew up. Here I thought I was making a rather snarky off the cuff comment, and, oh well. I guess I'd better respond. I'm an estate lawyer in the US. Those of you who criticized me for not noting that my comment was only applicable to my own jurisdiction are absolutely correct. I apologize although I think a few of you went a bit overboard with the insults. This is Reddit, people. The word helicopter is a combination of helicospiral and PTER, one with wings. Edit, most people assume the word breaks down into helicopter without realizing those two words mean nothing in this connotation OHH so like the ter in pterodactyl. Till. As an Australian I was very surprised to find out that dingoes aren't actually native to Australia. In school they're always talked about being native to Australia. They have been here for a long time, most likely 4,000 years ago, but they're actually a nation wolf. Most people do believe me when I tell them dingoes aren't native to Australia. It's even weirder because dingoes are one of the most iconic Australian animals alongside kangaroos. After living in Slovakia for 7.5 years, I got beyond frustrated when people would tell me that I would catch a cold from simply being in cold weather, or that air conditioning in the summer makes you sick, or that you treat a cold with antibiotics, or that sitting on cold concrete will give you hemorrhoids. I tried to refute all of this with actual evidence, but it fell upon deaf ears. I loved my time there, but good lord, the old health superstitions are alive and well. A spade is the flat shovel, not the pointed one. Blame that one on card decks. Einstein didn't fail math. Perhaps the legend is founded in the fact that the Swiss school system has a 6 as best grade and 1 as poorest, while the German is the other way round. That the air in your bag of chips isn't oxygen, but nitrogen, so that your product doesn't stale. It also keeps them from breaking to an extent. Remember that lady who spilled hot coffee on herself and sued McDonald's? The real truth is her grandson was driving, and she was the passenger and they were parked. The coffee spilled, and she was covered in 3rd-degree burns, and McDonald had their temperature warmer than the other hot coffees other places sell. The lady only wanted McDonald's to pay her medical bill and lower the coffee temperature. Those holes in the corners of your eyes are your tear ducts. However, that does not mean that is where tears come from. That's where your eyeball juices drain into your nose, which is why your nose runs when you cry, and why you're not just constantly leaking tears. You only cry when there are too many tears to drain into your nose. Conceiving twins is only genetic through women, and that's only fraternal twins. Identical twins are completely random. Homo sapiens, us, coexisted with other human species at the same time. Neanderthals, Denisovians, etc. There was no evolutionary order we often seen where the monkey turns into a man over a few stages. The definition of an introvert. Not all introverts hate people and never want to socialize. Being introverted just means that social interaction is physically and mentally draining, compared to an extrovert who gains energy through social interaction. We introverts still like to get out and have a good time and can genuinely enjoy it. It's just going to require some downtime after. Yeah, and some people equate social anxiety with introversion. However, you can be a total extrovert and have crippling social anxiety. And it sucks. Shaving, waxing, plucking or anything of the sorts does not make your hair grow back faster or thicker. It just looks thicker because it is new growth. The only thing that will really change how thick or dense your hair grows is hormones. Bad vibes are a thing, but they are not what you think. When others feel stressed or scared, they emit a chemical transmitter that everyone in a radius around them perceives unconsciously. If you're close enough, your body will react with a pre-programmed response. Usually your pupils dilate, heart rate increases, and cortisol, a stress hormone, will spike. You will go into fight or flight response. This is something we adapted to as humans evolved. If a person perceived a threat, say, a tiger nearby, and not everyone could see it, their fear experience had the advantage of being contagious, so to speak. A lot of the time, the people we come in contact with make us feel bad because they are stressed or scared. Our bodies are reacting to them out of our need for survival. People who are constantly anxious have anxiety that is literally contagious. A defibrillator will not restart a heart, it will only stop fibrillation, VFib. What is fibrillation in this context? Because as a papermaker, fibrillation would be a weird thing to happen to hearts. And thus the name. It's not, for all intensive purposes. It's, for all intents and purposes. If you end up in a higher tax bracket, only the income above that bracket gets taxed at the new percentage. You are not viewed as a loser, weak or stupid when you admit you're wrong. It's the exact opposite. Backquote: a lot is 2 words. Despite popular belief, Van Gogh didn't eat yellow paint because he thought it would make him happy. He ate yellow paint because he was depressed and wanted to kill himself. People also think that he painted Starry Night while having a breakdown, but he painted it while in recovery from a previous suicide attempt. Starry Night showed his hopes for the world when he got out. Most of his paintings were made while he was in recovery because he wasn't allowed in his studio while he was having a breakdown. We only use 10% of our brains. Wrong. We use different parts of our brains at different times, but we use all of it. Using 100% of one's brain at once is actually relatively common. It's called a seizure. Like how traffic signals only use 1/3 of their capabilities, red or amber or green. If they used 100%, it would be chaos. You cannot detox with bullshit diets and shakes. Your body has its own detox system. Any diet or sauna, or whatever other bullshit you're doing doesn't work. Exactly, the only way to detox your body is through a secret method called having kidneys. Best thing to do, if you feel like you need to detox, is just drink water regularly. The more water you drink, the more you want to drink, and you start to feel so damn good. You can eat a brownie and still lose weight. Just be mindful of your portion sizes, keep an eye on calories in vs calories out, and you'll be fine. Just because you're on a diet doesn't mean you have to eat nothing but lettuce all the time. Edit, I should clarify. I'm not saying you should eat crap all the time, but I'm making the point that it's okay to have sweets and treats. I've seen so many people freak out over something like a cookie, when at the end of the day, it isn't a big deal. Just eat a slightly smaller dinner, or go for a walk or something to burn it off. A watched pot will actually boil. So long as you remembered to tune the stove on. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment below the video. Have a nice day.